Hello, my name is Cassidy, and the article I chose is titled Florida Cases Seeking Death Penalty for Child Sex Abuse Could Test Precedent in Supreme Court. This article was published on October 30th, 2025, and it was written by Deborah Kaysen-Weiss. The article talks about how there are currently 2 Florida cases that might challenge the Kennedy versus Louisiana Supreme Court ruling. That ruling took place in 2008 in states like giving the death penalty for child rape or anything that didn't take the life of someone else is unconstitutional under the 8th Amendment, which bans cruel and unusual punishment. So essentially, if a life wasn't taken, then they can't be eligible for the death penalty. However, Florida prosecutors in both Palm Beach and Putnam County are seeking the death penalty in 2 separate cases, both involving sexual abuse. In 2023, Florida passed a new law allowing the death penalty for child rape. Florida is the first and only state to do this. A Florida state senator argues that the law is fair since it lets the jury look at both the aggravating and mitigating factors before deciding if the crime deserves the death penalty. However, there are critics that say that this can be a very slippery slope because more crimes such as kidnapping, child pornography, and a lot of other crimes can eventually lead to the death penalty as well. If these cases do end up reaching the U.S. Supreme Court, then it can reopen or even change the 2008 ruling about the death penalty. This article relates to Chapter 10 of our textbook, where it talks about capital punishment. Both the article and the textbook talk about the death penalty in the United States and how the Supreme Court ultimately decides when it can and cannot be used. Both the article and the textbook also look at the ongoing controversy over the death penalty. The textbook also mentions during the capital punishment trial, juries look at the aggravating and mitigating factors, aggravating being the reasons for a harsher sentence and mitigating being the reasons for a lighter sentence. Florida's laws use the same process, which is why the state says that it's fair and is different than the old law. Both the article and the textbook talk about this controversy, and supporters say that it brings justice and protects people, while there are opponents that say that it is cruel and it doesn't stop crime. Essentially, they're both arguing about the same ideas. Overall, both the article and the textbook show that this death penalty is still a major debate on whether it is cruel and unusual, and if it should be used. And so these Florida cases really show how states are testing these Supreme Court limits, and people remain divided on whether or not the death penalty is fair or if it is too harsh and inhumane for our society.